Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming to this session, but I really want to thank my wife because she's going to learn what I do today. So, thank you for the intro. My name is Emmanuel Khory and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of WPStaq, and I've been building SaaS projects since 2011. Unfortunately, the first two failed, but obviously we're on to a winner with Stack. So it's been a journey, and that's what I'll be discussing today. It's all about the journey, how we got to product market fit, and I'll be sharing a lot of my experiences and processes on how we got to where we are today. And a lot of my background into why we created WPStaq was I came from a digital agency background. I started a company called Digital Engine, and we focused on building websites and custom software development for our clients at the time. And I wrapped that up around 2021 and transferred a lot of my skill sets into building what we are today with WPStaq. So before I start, this is my co-founder. We've been working together since 2013, and we've been on this journey together, building SaaS projects. And as a company, we are in the managed WordPress hosting space. Our ideal customer are digital agencies, and that's who we primarily work with, including also the corporate sector. And we started to build our technology and our platform from 2017. As a company, we're self-funded. We've never received a cent from any external sources, whether that's grants or investors. And so it's given us the ability to really control the destiny of the company and really give us the input based on our experience and then speaking to our potential users that eventually came into our paying customers. And so our value proposition is that we help digital agencies host, manage, and deploy WordPress client sites 5x faster. This value proposition took us years to understand. And if you understand your go-to-market strategy, that will help you to get to product market fit. And if you don't have that product market strategy in place, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure. And so this is where, as a founder of a business, it is crucial that you take part of this journey, because then you get to understand everything about the business so that when you start hiring others, at least you know the processes and what it takes to get to what you need to achieve. But before I go through our product market story, I wanted to give you some of the hard and expensive lessons that I've had to go through. And when I say expensive, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that have gone down the drain. And so the first startup that I created took your website and created it into a dedicated mobile site in 60 seconds. I would go straight to the business owner, and they would say, we're going to sign up, but we have to speak to our web developer or digital agency first. And because they went to them, we couldn't get them across the line because they knew that we were a threat. So I learned very early on that you want to go to your paying customer who has the least resistance. And then the second startup failed because we were trying to do something too big that required a lot of education. And I think at the time we were too ahead of its time. It's what AI is essentially doing today, so in terms of the web development space. And so we went back to the drawing board. And so this is what was the accidental idea. So my other company, which produced, I guess, profits to invest into my SaaS ideas, essentially was giving me grief. I hated WordPress with a passion because the processes and everything internally was just wrong. Servers were going down. Managing plugins and sites was just chaotic. And it was just really frustrating experience until my co-founder, who's our CTO of the company, said, I can automate a lot of the problems that you're suffering. And that's where Stack was born. And so this is the whole journey to product market fit. you obviously got to know the problem. And so the previous slide was identifying the problem that I had with WordPress as a digital agency. And then you obviously got to have your market research. You got to have a hypothesis. You want to test it. You got to build the solution and obviously test it, validate it, and then scale. And so the market size, like WordPress is massive. Like the ecosystem is a $1 trillion market globally in terms of Aussie dollar terms. All I need is a small segment of that market. It powers 44% of the total websites globally. And in the content management system, it powers 65% of all websites. Shopify comes in number 2 at only 5% of the market share. So you know how big this industry is. And so what you think you want to create is not necessarily what you do create at the end. So we just wanted to stick to AWS or Amazon Web Services as our platform and just become a specialized AWS and WordPress platform, and that's it. But it obviously didn't turn out that way. We got in really deep into WordPress, the foundations of WordPress, speaking to our users and how they use WordPress, and we literally just kept building the features that what it is today. And so we released version 1 of our platform in 2018, and it solved a lot of the issues that I was suffering internally, which was taking up to half a day to spin up a server, set up the databases, set up the entire WordPress environment before you could start building. And so it was actually a trip down memory lane because I got to see a lot of our mock-ups that we created back many years ago. And so that was version 1. And so then version 2 was we started to build out more of the product. We got my agency was the first paying customer, but then the second paying customer was a friend of mine in Brisbane. So then we got a lot of the feedback from there. And even though the design went backwards, it was more so trying to test the functionality and validate the functions and how we can focus on automation and efficiency. And so a lot of the processes of version 2 was building automation. So for example, we would ask the question, how long would it take to deploy your WordPress website? And we'll speak to other agencies, and they were saying around that time, 30 minutes. And we got that process down to 2 minutes with automation, including with SSL certificate generation and et cetera. So we're all about workflows and efficiency and automation. And then COVID happened. And I knew back from when the GFC happened, I was 18, 19 at that time when the GFC happened, and I knew that tech companies were doubling down, and I knew when COVID happened, we had to double down. And a lot of software engineers were coming onto the market at half the price, so we were able to snap up a total of 8 engineers at that time, and we just really went gangbusters when it came to version 3. And so obviously it's not the same logo, we've updated it, but essentially wanted to focus on a really strong product. And it was until that point, we got to September 2020, we showcased Stack, showed the possibilities, we got amazing feedback at that time, and then we started to onboard other digital agencies. And so between us, of 8 years of us building websites together with my mate in Brisbane, and he was growing really fast, we migrated more websites to Stack in 6 months than what we had done in over 8 years. And so we knew that we were onto something. And then by April 2021, we started to get cash flow neutral. So we were breaking even at that time. And so that's what allowed us to continue to inject the cash flow into the business to continue our product growth. And so that's where we knew we're onto something, and eventually we will hit product market fit. And when you start to speak to your customers, you start to understand what they love and what they liked. And one thing they really loved about our platform was that the websites that they would load on our platform were super fast. And then they start to see the management capabilities with the workflows and automations that our platform provided. And then that's where they sort of forgot about the speed at the end because it was natural to them, and they were starting to focus about the management of how they can manage their clients. And that's sort of what helped us understand that, hey, we're not just a AWS or WordPress hosting platform, we're more than that. And so we start to extend a lot of the features based on necessity. So when you start onboarding a lot of digital agencies, they all have their own processes, some were doing the right thing, some were doing the wrong things. And so we started to see an uptick of DDoS attacks, plugins were not being updated, securities, or no one was using firewalls. So we're like, oh, okay, we've got to go back to the drawing board. We're onto something with the management. We need to extend it further. And you do that based on looking at your log files and sort of seeing what everything was doing. And then you start to see that it's a bigger problem. And sometimes you've got to take the risk by not listening to your customers 100%. You've got to look at the data. You've got to look at your gut feel. You are doing what your customers can't see sometimes. And so we started to pitch the idea about creating our own solutions. And so it really came down to that the best thing about WordPress is that it's open source, but the worst thing about WordPress is that it's open source. It gives you too much choice. And when you've got too much choice in something, it could be a bad thing. Because with WordPress, there's a plugin for this, a plugin for that, a service for this, a service for that. So we took a gamble. We created our own caching and speed optimization tools that were inherently built into our infrastructure. And then we went out to our paying customers and we go, hey, we've got this solution. It's going to save you on subscription fees with other third-party solutions, and it's free on our platform. What do you think? The good thing about that was we introduced that because it solved a lot of the performance issues internally on our network. And with AWS, it's super expensive. So we're constantly always optimizing on getting the best price with AWS. And a lot of it had to do with creating our own caching and optimization tools. So that was the gamble we took. At the same time, from a marketing point of view, it differentiates ourselves from others. It shows product differentiation. It shows that we're innovative and we were doing something very different in the traditional WordPress hosting industry. And this led to more signups, which is great. But we hit a problem. Eventually, we introduced so many features that I didn't know how to explain Stack. And when you can't explain your product very quickly in 10 seconds or less, you've got a serious problem. And so, going back to my wife, my wife at work, for example, her colleagues would ask her, what does your husband do? And my wife would say, I don't know, he has a startup. And if I didn't know how to explain it, let alone my wife, then that's a big problem. It's a big problem in our marketing. It's a big problem in anything because I started to see that our revenue growth per month was starting to slow down. So back to the drawing board. And I met with a lot of branding people, and they're great at what they do. But the thing is, one thing I learned is that branding and marketing, and in the SaaS space, and you're specializing in SaaS marketing, are two different skill sets, two different professions, and Axel would definitely know that. But I didn't know that at the time because they didn't understand tech, they didn't understand WordPress, they didn't know what our vision was. And I didn't know how to explain it properly, but I needed someone that understood marketing and tech and what we were trying to do and piece that all together. So I had to learn it myself. And it was until I met this guy on YouTube. His name is TK Cater. I can't remember his initial company, but he sold it to Marketo, and then Marketo sold it to Adobe in just under $5 billion. And he's got an amazing YouTube channel that he talks anything SaaS related. And a lot of the videos is you don't have to apply it to a SaaS business. You can apply it to general marketing. So I invite you to scan this QR code because honestly, this one video changed everything for me. It goes for about 35 minutes, but I'll let you scan that. And in that particular video, he goes through 9 points. Honestly, the first 4 points is what I really needed to understand. First thing is obviously know your ICP. You've got to know what's your value proposition and what he calls the Broadway show, which is taking your ICP and taking your value proposition and taking that components into your Broadway show. So for example, with channel mastery. So for example, with Stack, our ideal customer profile is digital agencies, and our value proposition is that we host, manage, and deploy WordPress 5x faster for your clients. And that channel mastery is taken to your Google Ads, Google Ads and Facebook ads, and mastering that where you get a good result. And so before this particular video, I was spending up to $6,500 just to get a sign up. And with Google Ads, I dumped 10 grand without a sign up. I knew something was broken. But initially, after we did that and finished that exercise, which I spent at least 6 months on, around November 2022, I started to rerun Google Ads and Facebook ads, and I got it down to around $500 a sign up and $150 on Google Ads. Now, you might say $500 is a lot of money to spend on to get one sign up, but if someone is spending minimum 10 grand a year with us, it's peanuts. So the whole thing that I understood was you've got to have a clear message. When you're accelerating your user signups, you get to understand their pain points, you get to show them your product, you get to see what their expectation is, you get to see any feedback. And so we started to notice from November 2023, we had a good 1-year run with our existing marketing without changing much. And we started to notice that our revenue growth started to reduce, even though we're still growing month on month. So we went back to the drawing board, and it really didn't require much of a change. So we looked at conversion rate optimization. And I read something that you only really need to focus on 3 main pages on your entire website to do conversion rate optimization. So we focused on our homepage, our plans page, and our sign-up page. And I knew to focus on these 3 pages because obviously the homepage is going to be the most visited page. We noticed on heat mapping tracking that they'll go into our plans page as the second most visited page. And obviously we used our sign-up page because that's obviously the most important page once we want to lock them into our system. And so to give you an example, tracking our plans page to the sign-up page to then the sign-up thank you page, we're only getting 2.6% conversion rate. And all we did was look at the sign-up page only. And we tweaked it, improved it, and the result was overnight, or very quickly, that went from 2% to over 10% conversion rate. And then we looked at that was our plans page to the sign-up thank you page. Then we looked up our sign-up page alone to the sign-up thank you page, and we noticed a massive abandonment if they landed on a sign-up page because they weren't completing the process. So only 7% of people were completing that process. After massive changes, we got that up to 50%. So when you're getting that type of additional sign-ups, that means you're getting more demo calls, more sign-ups, more data. And you're using all of that, and then you get to speak to more people. And so as we were on our product market journey, a lot of the calls that we were having, especially with the feature requests, started to become very consistent and very predictable. And we knew we were narrowing that gap. And so we did some major feature releases later this year. And now the demo calls that we're having is that's really insignificant feature requests that really don't take us long. So we're now in the tweaking improvement stage as opposed to the developing stage. And so how do you know what are the indicators of product market fit? Obviously, customer retention. And we've got amazing customer retention. It's obviously coming down to your growth in your user base. So we look on a month-by-month basis. Our user base is always growing. The amount of invoices we issue from our system every month continues to grow. Our revenue continues to grow on a month-by-month basis. And then we're looking at our feedback. And obviously, we receive a lot more positive feedback, but there's times where we say we could do a little bit better here. And those are the type of conversations we want to have because we want to continue to improve our product. And so now we're primed to scale our business. And now, hopefully, very soon, we're looking at our first international market. And that's after signing up our biggest user in the US where they're going to be migrating over 1,000 websites over to Stack under our management portal. So it's a very exciting time for us. So the lessons learned is that stick to one ideal customer. At least then you start to build everything where you focus all your energy into that one particular channel. From a development tech point of view, you want to build in a very fast and agile environment. You obviously don't want to overcomplicate the features, and that comes to a lot of it is UI and UX. Obviously, you don't want to overcomplicate your messaging in marketing, which is obviously a basic 101 in marketing. You don't want to sell features. You want to be selling the outcome. And so one particular analogy that I learned only late, probably a year ago, is that are you selling the features of a drill, or are you selling the hole? The hole is the hole you're putting in the wall. That's the outcome that we're selling. So I learned very on is never sell features, sell the outcome. Hence our value proposition, which is to host, manage, deploy WordPress 5x faster, because there's an outcome attributed to that value proposition. And obviously you want to understand your market and differentiate yourselves. So my advice to others in this journey is obviously you want to engage with your users, be patient and persistent. I mean, we've been building Stack since 2017, so you've got to have a lot of patience and persistence, and that's why I've lost my hair. You obviously got to act quick and be agile, and you obviously want to continue to learn and adapt. Now, the fun part, question time. Thank you.
So were there any questions from the floor before we answer? Any questions?
Yeah, so what...
Hang on one sec.
Sure.
Yep.
Just in terms of heat mapping, what tools did you use for reviewing your analytics and data analysis?
Yeah, I originally tried Hotjar. For some reason, it didn't work on my website, even though it's the go-to product. But I actually used Mouseflow at the end.
Question. So you mentioned your first customer was your digital agency, and you found a second customer. How did you find the first 10 customers? Because I find that like early stage companies, finding those first 1, 5, 10 customers are the hardest. What did you find worked for you, and did that help guide that product marketing journey?
It was actually something you said in your last talk. It's you as the founder building the vision and the story, and then they see the vision of you and your product. And it was people within my network, and that's how we got our first, I would say, 10 to 20 customers of our platform, was based on that. After that, it all came down to Google ads and Facebook ads. And now we're getting to a point where it's now word of mouth and referrals. So it's a combination of everything now.
Any other questions? Yep, go here. Starting to run out.
I just wanted to check, outside of Facebook and Google, have you done any other advertising such as Capterra or G2 or any of those ones?
No, the next one on our list, because it comes down to channel mastery, you don't want to just jump on every platform for the sake of jumping on. So we stuck to Facebook ads first. We've obviously getting a return on investment. Then we went back to Google ads. We're getting now a good return on investment. The next one we want to try is YouTube ads with a combination of LinkedIn ads, or we might just go straight to LinkedIn ads. And the next one we're going to do is personalized outreach. So those are going to be, we want to keep it simple. We don't want to adopt sophisticated marketing, because I think using being simple and stupid is essentially what works essentially for us.
Just on that, what are your thoughts on G2, Capterra, product review, all that kind of thing? Has that come into your marketing strategy, all those kind of review sites that are out there?
Social proofing has indirectly come in to our marketing. So if you look at our homepage, every outcome-based feature we mention is followed with a separate row of a testimonial from someone that's tying back to that feature. So if you look at it on our homepage, I think we've got about probably 15 different testimonials from different features, but it's not lumped into one row with 15 testimonials. So it'll be like something about our uptime with our hosting, and then below that is a message about our hosting service. And then the next one would be about our management tools, and then someone mentions something about our management. And then towards the end, something about our onboarding experience, and someone's saying it's the best onboarding experience I've ever had. So we've sort of done it that way in our content. Until we run out of avenues, then we probably start going to those different segments. But yeah, it's all about channel mastery at the very beginning.
Any other questions for Emmanuel?
Sorry, man, I've got 2 questions.
That's all right.
First one is, you mentioned you had your ideal customer persona at the beginning. As your product developed and evolved, did you find that you had to change and update from revealing that persona?
When I was impatient, I started to broaden our message, and it actually was it was a detriment to us. Going back to just sticking to who we want to target has been key for us. So if I ever had to diversify, I would probably diversify into government and corporate, but I wouldn't change our key message or our core message. It would be just a separate division or a separate message that wouldn't dilute that our main market is digital agencies.
And the second question is, what did you change to get so many more sign-ups?
Our message. I was originally selling the features, and when I moved away from selling features to selling the outcome, that's what changed it all for us. And again, watch that video. I mean, I'll bring it back up just in case. I can't emphasize how much of how much this changed everything for us. That one video just, made me see everything in a completely different perspective. So.